and this being the first and only
Mr. Gray,
time
no one believes you.
Ever...
You have no credibility.
This story went to air in a way that it shouldn't have.
Sir, no, you have called it a mistake. And with all due respect, a mistake is when I put milk in my coffee instead of cream. Did you talk to these people and get their motives, sir?
Watch this.
That was possibly the worst answer you could have given.
Clinton Jaws, it's 11 o'clock. I'm going to be up till 2 in the morning. I got to show this to you guys because I had no idea how good it got. I kept on watching. It got really good. CTV boss. They grill him to a point where he basically buckles. Fruit flies. You have to watch to the end because it keeps on going and then it escalates to where it's embarrassing, to where it's awkward, but a cool awkward. CTV, they faked a report, and now they got to answer to it. Let's enjoy this. Let's crack open a morning coffee and get going.
A report on the CTV national news broadcast on September 22nd did not meet our expected and required high editorial standards. The investigation found that 2 members of the CTV news team were responsible for altering a video clip. As a result, those individuals are no longer members of the CTV news team, nor employed by any Bell Media entity.
Sir, how much money does Bell Media or CTV News receive in annual subsidies from Justin Trudeau's Liberal government?
Unlike the CBC, CTV nor CTV News receive any subsidies from the government. In fact, we're required to spend at least 30% of our annual revenue each year,
Heroes.
which amounts to $1.2 billion since 2011 on Canadian programming expenditures.
You're a hero.
At the same time as all of this, we are losing $185 million a year on our television operations, including a loss of $40 million on news alone.
So CTV hasn't received any regulatory relief or no wage relief in the last 9 years. Is that your contention?
We receive no subsidies from the government.
The question was regulatory relief or subsidies for wages in the last 9 years?
So there was a decision made by the federal government recently that amounted to having a $40 million impact on Bell Media, but it was not a subsidy. It was, in fact, the elimination of a tax on our revenues that had existed since 1997.
$40 million in regulatory relief. I will skip ahead of you, and $122 million in subsidies for wages. So I want to talk about, pardon me?
The $40 million was not a subsidy.
Sir, you're correcting something that I didn't say. So let's just get off on the right foot here. I referred to it as regulatory relief. $40 million in regulatory relief. Did you receive $40 million in regulatory relief?
We received $40 million in relief through the elimination of a tax.
Okay. So I have a sense of how this is going to go. So let's go.
Here we go.
What specifically happened in this case on September the 22nd was that those policies and codes of ethics were violated by 2 individuals at CTV National News. In one case, a reporter altered a script after it had been approved by the producer, significantly changing the meaning and the intent of a particular clip to better suit the requirements of the story they were attempting to tell. In the second case, an editor spliced fragments of 2 segments of a statement together, creating a clip that hadn't actually been spoken in order to cover a technical issue with the original recording. In my 33 years working in television news, I cannot recall anything similar to this ever happening before. It would have been impossible in this case to catch this error because, as I said a few moments ago, what happened here is that the script that was produced and approved by the producer was later altered, and altered in 2 ways, by the reporter and by the editor. Again, this is something I have never seen and have no experience dealing with in my 33 years in television news. We made a mistake. It was a mistake that was impossible to foresee. We apologized immediately. We took follow-up steps to ensure that our standards were being met it was determined that they weren't. We, as a result of that, made the decision that the 2 employees involved would no longer be part of CTV News or Bell Media,
Okay.
and then we apologized again.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Gray. Ms. Shannon.
And I'd like to understand why this mistake happened. Was there a willingness to disinform? Was there malicious intent?
There was no malicious intent.
Really?
From my perspective,
None.
this was 2 people
You wait.
who were acting independently to make a particular story work on a given day.
Donc, il y avait une volonté de désinformation.
So there was a willingness to disinform.
There was no intent to disinform.
Le résultat était le même.
But the outcome is the same.
Well, there was no intent, but yes, the outcome was the same, and that is why we took the measures and steps that we did, and that these 2 individuals are no longer part of the CTV News team or Bell Media.
So you reacted to the consequences, but not to the intention. Is that it?
Well, as I said, there was no intent.
So perhaps you could talk about this.
You wait
Is
for
it
it.
the case that these people were just racing, cutting corners perhaps to meet a deadline? Were they under pressure? I'm still concerned with the points that my friend from the block brought up about the motive, because I'll tell you, sir, on the face value of it, even though this impacted the Conservative Party, of which I have no ideological alignment with, it is still very concerning as it undermines faith, not just in media, but in our democracy. What was the motive specifically?
The motives were different in each case. So in the first case, the clip was altered to take out the reference to the carbon tax, with the explanation given that the story was being reduced in length for time. There was no specific ask of that reporter to alter their story for time. And it was explained to us that that reporter believed that it was understood that the clip's nature was about the carbon tax election.
With 15 seconds left, can you summarize the other side of it?
Yes. There was a technical error in our original record that prevented the video from being presented as was. The editor took the step to manipulate the audio so that the video could cover it.
Oh, clear as mud.
How long had these 2 been working? Were they experienced? Was it like, because there is a
highly experienced. They were both highly experienced.
And so I would put to you that I would echo the concern of my Conservative counterpart that if this was something they felt comfortable doing in this instant, what is to say that they hadn't done it in other instances?
Answer it.
As I said, as I've said a couple of times, this is the first time I have ever seen anything like this occur in
but answer his question.
in my 33 years experience.
I want to welcome Mr. Scheer to committee.
Guys,
Mr.
it gets
Scheer, you have
good.
5 minutes. Go ahead, sir.
Trust me.
Oh, God.
Thank you very much, Mr.
Oh,
Chair.
God, he
I
says.
just
Did
have
you
to
hear
go
that?
Back to what you said. You said that the
That's the
clip
best
was-
part. He finds out that Scheer's coming on, and he goes, "Oh God."
Oh, God.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. I just have to go back to what you said. You said that the clip was altered. You showed Canadians something that never happened. And you're telling me now that there was no intent to misinform Canadians, and that the reason for that altering of a clip was because it had to be cut down for time. So the words that were cut out were carbon tax election. Okay, now I just timed myself. That took about 1.2 seconds. So you're telling me that there was no intent to misinform Canadians and they had to cut this down for length, and that it would be understood that the quote from the Conservative leader was about a carbon tax election, even though you removed the words carbon tax election.
They're screwed.
Can you understand how we're having a very difficult time accepting that?
So I want to be clear
Crystal clear.
What I indicated was that was the explanation offered by the individual involved. That was not my explanation as
Do you
to what
accept
transpired.
that? Do you accept that, or do you believe it was deliberately done to mislead Canadians?
It wasn't me.
I do not believe that it was deliberately done, but
Okay, so-
still,
so do you
there was a
accept the-
violation of our
So
there
then
was a
you believe
violation
it?
of our editorial standards. So, these
do
two
you accept the
individuals are no longer
explanation?
part of.
Do you accept the explanation that was given to you?
Yeah.
We have made a decision that due to the violation of our editorial standards, that these individuals are no longer part of CTV
He's been
News.
coached.
So what do you believe the motive was?
It is not for me to determine what the motive was.
Okay. Is
This is
CTV
so good.
News's viewership increasing or decreasing year over year? Would the viewership this year be higher or lower than last year?
It's
There
the
has been a
shit.
consistent erosion in viewership in broadcast media in this country for a number of years. It's falling year over year.
I wonder why.
you'd like
When you get caught putting things on the air that you then have to admit never actually happened, I can understand why viewership as well as trust would erode. I just want. I
can
only
give
have
you a couple of specific.
Sorry, I only have about a minute left, so I just want to make understand one thing. Does CTV News have a diversity target? That doesn't answer the question. Do you have a specific policy to ensure that the editorial direction, the journalists, and the producers at CTV News reflect the Canadians' political spectrum?
It's not the job of journalists to reflect the Canadian political spectrum. It's our job to present stories in an unbiased, balanced, accurate, and fair way.
No, but you're telling me you have no way of determining whether or not the producers, the editors, and the journalists
No, there's no
all
policy.
have the same liberal bias. You have no way to determine that.
Quick response, Mr. Gray, please.
Our team do not have a liberal bias.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Scheer.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair.
It gets
Mr.
good, guys.
Ray, you have repeatedly
this
stated
guy.
here today
This guy.
that you believe that there was no intent to mislead. Let's look at what happened. CTV spliced together 3 short sound bites. Sound bites spliced together, not even in the order that they were stated, to create an entirely made-up sentence, literally fake news, that entirely changed the meaning of what Pierre Poilievre said.
I could not be married to this guy.
On what basis do you conclude that there was no intent to mislead? On what basis exactly?
Could you imagine being married to him?
2
He's too good.
now former staff members of CTV News acted in a way that was in breach of our editorial standards.
You made a conclusive statement that there was no intent to mislead. So I'm asking you, on what basis do you draw that conclusion?
Based on 33 years of experience, and this being the first and only
Mr.
time
Ray, no one
anything like
believes
this
you.
has
And
ever
you
happened.
said, for example, that the employee who altered the video, one of the 2 employees, said that he or she believed that it would be understood to be about the carbon tax election. Yet nowhere in the report is there any mention of the carbon tax election. So on what basis could anyone reasonably believe that that statement was made in that context when there was no context? Quite the opposite, disinformation.
I disagree.
It's a fact that there was no mention of a carbon tax election. You have no credibility, and in the face of the fact that CTV peddled a fraudulent news story, and you haven't apologized, you haven't explained the basis upon which you have asserted that there was no intent to mislead, to simply say you disagree isn't good enough. No one believes you.
We have, in fact, apologized twice.
Apologized at all. You said there was no intent to mislead.
Yeah.
No intent to mislead, but you can't even articulate the basis of why.
Yeah.
There was no intent to mislead. We have apologized
Say that,
twice.
but I asked you to provide a basis, and you haven't been able to provide a
2:30.
basis.
2:30. Go ahead, Mr. Caputo.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Gray, I take issue with something that you said, and it's actually been said a number of times at this committee. You
this is good.
characterized this as a mistake. Do you stand by that?
It was The violation
Sir,
of
I asked
our
you,
editorial
was this
standards.
a mistake? You've said that before. You stand by the fact it was a mistake. Is that correct?
I stand by the fact that
Sir,
this story went to air in a way that it shouldn't
Sir,
have.
no, you have called it a mistake. And with all due respect, a mistake is when I put milk in my coffee instead of cream. This was a massive error in judgment. This was a previously unforeseen breach of trust from what was once a trusted media organization. And you have said, picking up on what Mr. Cooper said, the explanation given was not to mislead Canadians. Sir, do you even believe that?
I stand by my testimony today wholeheartedly and unreservedly.
You stand by your testimony that the intent was not to mislead Canadians. Did you talk to these people and get their motives, sir?
Watch this.
There was a fulsome investigation.
What I asked whether, sir, with all due respect, I didn't ask whether there was an investigation. I asked whether you spoke with them. Yes or no?
I did not speak with them beyond having an initial conversation with the reporter the night that this was brought to our attention.
So you had a brief initial conversation, and based on that, you come to committee and say that there was no malevolent intent to mislead based on that. And I ask whether you believe that, and you stand by it. With all due respect, sir, that is an untenable claim that you have arrived at. We are getting ready here for a carbon tax election. At the end of the day, is there one thing that you have done, that you have implemented to ensure that this won't happen again? Just one thing.
Yes, we've terminated 2 individuals.
No, sir, you have countless other employees. I mean, that was possibly the worst answer you could have given. What about moving forward? That is retrospective. What about moving forward? Because, sir, this is what I can say. Why is it that it always is the Conservatives that are fighting this battle?
Yeah.
Why is it? Why is it that when it comes to Justin Trudeau and the Liberals, they are not misquoted, but when it comes to Conservatives and Pierre Poilievre, this type of thing can happen, and that is shameful.
I'm going to have to end it there.
I disagree with the characterization.
In this incident, did you interview personally the 2 journalists or the 2 people in the newsroom that were fired?
No, I did not.
Okay, so that actually surprises me. You did not take have you taken the time since the incident to talk to the 2 of them directly?
I initiated a due process investigation into this matter that was conducted by professionals.
CTV screwed.
And I was apprised at all steps as to what discussions were occurring. And I came to the conclusion following that investigation that it was necessary for these individuals to no longer be members of the CTV News team.
Which I agree with, because it sounds like a step which needed severe disciplinary action. But my question is, today you've testified as to their motive, and you stated you don't believe that they did something for wrong reasons. I won't use Mr. Caputa's word of mistake, although I think you did use that. How would you know that if you haven't directly taken the time to speak to them to understand?
So based on the explanations offered,
that's all secondhand. That's all hearsay. You've come here to testify on behalf of CTV, and you didn't actually take the time yourself in what you describe yourself as an incredibly serious incident, one that was very embarrassing to the network. Why wouldn't you have not personally taken the time to meet with these 2 people to understand? Have you reviewed previous footage of this reporter and of this producer to check to see whether they did this in any other occasion? Have you gone back to previous footage?
Well, of course they have.
No. There have
but
never
why?
been any
Why would you have not gone back?
Why?
Like, if I know somebody's done something wrong, and I know it's incredibly serious, wouldn't I want to go back and see if they've done it before?
My wife does it all the time.
You only had to randomly look at, let's say, take 10 of 100 of the different stories covered by this reporter to look at that. Why would CTV have not done that?
Yeah.
I didn't feel it was necessary.
Didn't feel it's. I mean, I can say it's not only the conservatives, from my perspective, that have concerns, because I'm not a conservative and I have concerns about the way it sounds like this matter was treated in terms of, I don't think it was taken seriously enough. Again, have you changed any policies? Have you changed any company policies as a result of this incident on a forward-looking basis?
We took appropriate action in this case through 2 apologies.
I'm not questioning your apologies. I'm not questioning your apology. I believe you apologized. I believe you fired 2 people. I just want to understand, as a result of what happened, 2 people were allowed to do something that violated policy. What has been done to prevent 2 people in the future from doing exactly the same thing?
Yeah.
What has changed in your policy?
I want to correct something that you just said.
Okay.
2 people were not allowed to violate policy. 2 people violated policy.
Doesn't want to answer it, just wasting
and
time.
There were consequences for that violation of policy.
Bad.
I'm not trying to suggest CTV gave permission to the 2 of them to violate policy. The 2 of them did violate a policy. What has been done to prevent 2 people from doing exactly the same thing tomorrow?
As I've said repeatedly, this is the first time I have ever experienced anything like this in 33 years.
I know, but you haven't gone back to look at the footage of what these people had done before. You didn't go back to previous stories to check to see whether they did it, and just nobody was ever aware of it because no conservative staffer ever caught it. Have you? Why would you not? Will you undertake to the committee to go back and look at 10 previous stories done by these 2 people to see whether there was anything in there that you may not, or CTV is not aware of?
I don't think it's necessary because there have never been previous complaints about the conduct of these individuals.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Housefather. Unfortunately, that concludes our time with Mr. Gray. Mr. Gray, I want to thank you for appearing before.
No. Oh my God. That was so good. I don't know why. It just was. To see somebody just like buckle and completely unravel during time. It's the first time I've ever seen, and I hate to say the word, but it's the first time I've ever seen fake news actually get grilled like that under government. And that's what happens. That's the result. It's a failure. The guy was a complete failure. And I'm sorry that this was way too long. It's way too late. I loved it. I'm going to make it now. And enjoy your morning. Can you even hear me? Bye-bye.